Hi, I'm Dr. Rudy Cashman. We're going to have a very interesting show tonight. Thank you for watching our wellness shows. We generally have a different subject. Tonight I have a very interesting subject about type 2 diabetes, preventing it, stopping it, treating it, reversing it. And I have a wonderful guest with me tonight, a doctor of nurse practitioner, Dr. Kathy Paleo from the Lutheran Medical Group, who specializes in treatment and prevention and reversing type 2 diabetes. The experts at it. They run a large clinic at the Lutheran Health Network. And tonight we're going to concentrate a bit on the kitchen, how to prepare the kitchen. Only one third of Americans cook regularly or know how to cook. And that's frightening because wouldn't you agree, Kathy, that if you're type 2 diabetic, it's almost mandatory that you learn how to cook.
I agree.
You're going to be much healthier quicker.
Yes.
And we're agreed on that. So today we're going to help you in picking the foods, how to prepare the kitchen. In the next show, we'll be speaking about cooking and recipes. And this is extremely important. Kathy and I see we are, I think, generally in agreement, as well as Dr. David Katz, probably the most known public health official in the United States. 25 years he's been running a nutrition clinic at the university at NYU. And the way he speaks in there is the way we speak. So it's based on scientific information. We feel that 90% of type 2 diabetes can be avoided or reversed. I mean, just think of that. I mean, that's wonderful news, but I would say in general, people don't know about it. I rarely speak to a type 2 diabetic who knows that their disease is reversible a good 90% of the time if they don't smoke, eat non-sugary foods in general, exercise regularly. 90% chance to get rid of the disease, considering the complications, which are just horrendous, from blindness to amputations, heart disease, strokes. This trip is really worthwhile.
Yes.
And we know how to do it. Kathy knows how to do it. So tell me a little bit, Kathy, about diabetic prevention and reversal concepts, the way you look at it.
The most important thing is what people do. Again, not smoking. If you smoke, you need to stop smoking. And choose healthy foods. Just because you have diabetes doesn't mean you can never eat dessert again. But there are healthier sugars that you can eat. And you need to move. You need to be active. The higher your blood sugar goes with a meal, the more insulin you need to make or take. And then you develop more fatty tissue, which requires more insulin. And the high sugars damage the small vessels in the eyes, the feet, the kidneys, the gut. So if you can be mindful of what you do, you can reverse. I've had several patients in the last few years that have gotten off their insulin and reduced their oral medications by at least 80%. And the more we educate and the more you read and the more you learn, the easier it does get. But you have to start small.
Yes, and I'm sure you've had patients who are off all medication.
Yes.
Because Franklin House wrote a book, The 30-Day Miracle, the Lifestyle Institute in Arizona. You buy this book. He was able to do it in 30 days. And I've spoken to some of your associates, Dr. Karras, Dr. Centeniers, who said, frankly, if you eat the correct way, that you could get off most medications within a month.
Yes.
I've heard Dr. Karras say, Rudy, a week, the blood sugars will dive.
Yes.
He said it to me, so I think we're in general agreement. And we have to convince you to develop a good health habits. Well, first of all, you got to know what is good food. We will describe that. But you also have to know something about shopping, that you shop for correct food. And I think as a type diabetic especially, you've got to learn about what good and bad food is and good shopping habits. You have to have the right kitchen. You have to, if nobody else in the family has it, you have to teach them that you have special needs. Sometimes we'll see type diabetes, the whole family's got it. They all think it's in the genetic structure. That's not what it is. It's all eating the same food. That food is reacting to their common genetic structure and causing disease. People don't, realize that.
Right.
And in this book by Dr. David Katz, and he states specifically, which I've been teaching for years and you've been teaching, that 80% of diseases we're seeing today we don't need to get, we can get rid of by not smoking, by eating proper food, by exercising regularly. And by exercising, we don't mean marathon running, even just a good walk. A 30-minute walk every day would be enough. Let's speak about the kitchen specifically a little bit. What's the story all about? It's how the food you're eating, how it affects insulin. Does it raise the insulin level or not? So we need to pick low sugary foods. And table sugar, for example, sucrose, is 50% glucose and 50% fructose. Many people don't realize that. And the fructose is metabolized in your liver, causes fatty liver, insulin resistance, and that's what causes type 2 diabetes. So people need to look at the labels. For example, label reading is extremely important. You can go online and learn, and there are some general rules that you can follow. If it's, number 2, 1, 2, 3 item on what your label that you're reading, that's certainly going to have a larger amount of it. If it's got white flour in it, if it's got sugar in it, throw it out. You don't want it. If it's got a label, incidentally, means it's processed food.
Yes.
If you were to read Mark Hyman's book, Blood Sugar Solutions, a very good book to read too, about reversing type 2 diabetes. He will, frankly, the 10 rules of eating, he'll put in there on one of the top. If it's got white flour, white sugar, throw it out. You don't want to eat this way. The Diabetes Prevention Project, a big study was run, and they found, because they speak about having pre-diabetes, before you developed type 2 diabetes, which is like 10, 15 years beforehand, and the blood sugar may even be normal, you get pre-diabetes, that they may give you metformin, for example. That's 1/2 as effective as eating the correct food. Mainly vegetables, maybe a quarter plate of starchy vegetables, lean meats, avoiding sugar, fructose, reading labels. So, and you agree with that too. You mentioned it was 68%.
Right.
If you follow the right lifestyle, that you can get rid of diabetes versus taking medication.
Right.
Medications are expensive. And besides, we found, it's well known, only 50% of the people are compliant with the medication. And a lot of it is cost. This costs money.
Yeah.
And have you found that's the main reason people don't take the medicine, can't afford it?
Yes, they can't afford it.
Yeah.
And even with all the help. But I just recently had a patient, both he and his wife were on medication. They were both on insulin and oral medication. Their motivation, even after 4 years of seeing them every 4 months and teaching them to read labels and eat healthy food, their motivation was their retirement next year. They're both going to retire in 1 year. And they decided that they wanted to spend their money on travel and things that they enjoy. So in a 4-month period, they learned to read labels, make healthier food choices, and they both went off their insulin, and now they are almost off their oral medications just by a change in their diet.
In the lifestyle. Besides, insulin is an anabolic hormone. It makes you gain weight.
Correct. Whether you take it or make it,
Which
is
in
too
turn
much.
makes you even more overweight. I mean, the biggest problem to get rid of your diabetes is to get to a normal weight. That's really number one.
And it really only takes 5
Yeah.
or 10% weight loss to make a difference.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be you gotta lose 50 pounds. The 10–50% weight loss, many times the type 2 diabetes goes away.
Yes.
And it goes away quickly. Of our 600,000 foods that we have, almost every one of them has some sugar in them.
Yes.
So you got to read the labels very carefully. And sugar comes by 56 different names, if it isn't confusing enough.
Yes.
From honey to nectar and
some of them, like dextrose, fructose, glucose, lactose, sucrose, brown rice syrup. They try to fool you.
Yeah, they try to fool you. So you got to become an expert in Fat Chance Cookbook by Dr. Robert Lustig. A very good book to read. He's got a table in there. We don't want to have enough time to go through every one of the phony names for sugar. But you got to know them because you got to be a label reader. You got to be an expert label reader. And like I said, you can do this through the internet to get some teaching. Another way to pick good foods, if you just don't want to take the time, don't have the time, there are systems of labeling foods. One is called the New-Val system, which Dr. Katz developed, and 1,700 stores in the nation that have the New-Val system in them. And it will tell you from 0 to 100, using 30 different factors, how good the food is. We did notice when you and I were reviewing it earlier that the vegetables and all that, they all had a rating of 100. Kale had 100, yes. And it was interesting. And then we looked at different breads. Many breads were 10, 15, 20, because they're sugar. They're sugar. And unless they're very dark, 100% whole grain. So also in your kitchen, I mean, clean it out. You can't be having donuts laying around. All bad foods has to leave the kitchen. So what kind of food do you eat, Dr. Cashman? Seafood. Food I see is what I eat. I have 2 types of food in the house, good and bad. Okay, we need a little humor here. And it's difficult when you're used to eating a lot of sugar because it's like a narcotic.
Yes.
Sugar is a narcotic. It affects your brain, and it means it to feel good. Let's face it, eat one donut, I bet you can't stop because it makes you feel so good you want to eat the whole 12. Believe me, I have done it, but I've pretty much over that at 139 pounds. But believe me, if I were to come home after a stressful day, there's a dozen donuts there. Watch out, Kathy.
I know.
So we all have problems with this, okay? Knowledge is important. I can give you knowledge, but knowledge is not power. It's not power. So you have to develop your system of power, family member, a friend, maybe church. I teach this really through the Daniel plan. People do it through faith.
Yes.
Through faith, food, fitness, focus, and friends. A lot of people need that. I think it's a wonderful concept. It's another way of doing it.
No, I saw a patient today, and she was telling me her plan. By the time she comes back, she and a friend are going to cut sugar out, but they're doing it together. They're going to go through their pantry and throw out the things that they don't need, but they're doing it together. And they're going to go shopping together, and they're going to learn together. So again, like the Daniel plan, you're using your friends to help you. You do need a support group.
What a wonderful way of doing it.
And you can start small.
It's difficult for all of us. And a very important thing, and Dr. Lustig in this book describes, he was a pediatric endocrinologist from California, a very knowledgeable individual. You can catch him on YouTube too. You get a 1-hour lecture. He's very excellent. He speaks a great deal about avoiding fructose and sugar. His family followed a rule which I think is just great. I know I didn't do that. They will not start to cook till he is home. Wow, isn't that wonderful? Being a neurosurgeon, I might have been 3 in the morning, but But, you know, he's a hard-working endocrinologist, probably comes home 8, 9, 10. Kids and all, wife, everybody, from scratch, and they make it a thing of joy. Well, if you can make your kitchen a thing of joy, that's really would be great. And we need to somehow figure it out. Kids eat better when they get taught as a child, and they're part of the process. Teach your kids how to put together good meals. They will appreciate it. Dr. Barullo, a pediatrician, and I in town, we've given cooking classes to children at his office across from Eddie Malloy's. And the kids loved it. They loved it. And you know what the kids did? They taught the parents. It was really
That's a great idea.
wonderful. In terms of cost, actually Dr. Katz studied this in detail scientifically and published a paper that, because everybody's saying, you know, good food is more expensive. If you shop carefully and buy in bulk and much more seasonally and you freeze it and stuff, it's a wash. One is not any more expensive than the other.
80% of the processed food is for advertising, labeling. So you're paying for all that where you can buy food much cheaper that's not processed and packaged.
Besides, if you're healthy and get rid of your type 2 diabetes, do you think it's going to be more extensive or save you a fortune in money? Give me a break. I mean, complications of type 2 diabetes are humongous. Heart attacks, strokes, things where the bills are $200,000, $300,000 versus buying healthy food. And Dr. Katz also puts out a free DVD. You can get it on a website called the Nutrition Detective DVD. So go online and get that. It's good for the children.
Or grandchildren.
Or grandchildren. And interesting enough, if you go to a restaurant, you increase your calorie consumption about 50%. Wow, there's one to avoid. That's right. Cooking, if you're eating out 7 days a week, it's a problem. You know, it can be a problem for me because I'm busy at work and now eating out once a day. To eat in a restaurant takes real skill.
Yes, and we've gotten addicted to that sugar. You know, we've just developed it because they put it in everything, so now that we eat it, we like that taste and we look for it.
Oh,
so
yeah,
you
I
have
know.
to slowly eliminate.
I know probably the most successful restaurant in town. You go in, they bring you a thing of white bread like that.
Yes.
I've spoken so often to the managers that I not order bread till I be given a choice.
And there is a new...
where they could give us, say, half very dark bread.
Yes.
And because what's white bread? It's sugar. You might as well take a tablespoonful and eat out and just be eating sugar. White bread is sugar. And take on the waiter about it, because over time, I think I will see the day with this restaurant who's excellent quality food, they will change.
And there is a new trend in Fort Wayne, and I think in a lot of the major chains where they are not putting bread on the table. If you want it, you can ask for it, but that's the new trend, and I think it's very healthy.
I think that's a good one. And at home, use Ezekiel bread. We study that. There's a lot of sprouts in the frozen section of the freezer, much healthier. And you need the right equipment. We could give you a list 2 or 3 pages long of the right equipment. You want to speak about that a minute, Kathy?
And most of us have these things in our home, but I think it's how we prepare. You know, a nice frying pan, your pots, a big pot to make soup stock. But I think we all have those things, but we are taught either through our mothers or grandmothers how to prepare food. And the worst way is to deep fry it. You can take a piece of fish and deep fry it, and you say, well, I had fish for dinner. But once you deep fry it, all the nutrition is out of the fish. So you would be better off to bake it or grill it to get this, to save the nutrition and the omegas that you get in the fish.
In the fish, yeah, because you're eating the fish to get the omega-3.
Right.
The healthy fat. You know, we speak about sugar as being the evil twin. Incidentally, I wrote a book on that, Fructose, the evil twin. We speak about sugar as being the evil guy, but omega-6 fats are also bad.
Yes.
Which are ones from non-organically raised beef, for example, fish raised in a pond and say the ocean is full of omega-6s are pro-inflammatory.
Yes.
They inflame our body. That's the reason type 2 diabetics have strokes and vascular disease, because their body is on fire, which reminds me of the last book I'm coming out shortly on Amazon, and the name of it is Body on Fire. we're inflaming our vascular system,
It
our
literally
nerve
is.
system. It really is on fire. You don't see it on the outside, but type 2 diabetics will get vascular disease, strokes, heart disease, autoimmune disease, increased rate of cancer. Dr. Katz says also that 60% of cancer is due to what we eat. If you eat 80%, say, vegetarian diet, for example, 20% lean meat, and properly prepare the food, you could eliminate 60% of cancer. Wow, cancer. No type 2 diabetes, 90% chance, 80% chance of avoiding vascular disease, eating correctly. So we're passing out the knowledge. Tell me a little bit about types of cooking. Boiling, for example. Why do you discourage boiling in general a little bit?
The boiling takes the nutrients out of the food. If you boil it, all the nutrients go into the water. You throw the water away, you eat the food, and there's not nutrition. So you would be better off to, you could saute it, and you can saute in plain water, or you can use coconut oil or regular oil. But
or
sauteing
omega-3,
is just,
you could
yes,
use you could use olive oil.
Olive oil, just
and,
a little
bit, and saute it. And
correct. And if you want to braising, you know, you could put like a, if it's a lesser priced piece of meat, you can braise that. You can poach fish. You can use broth and poach it.
Being a man and all, tell me, what does braising mean?
Braising would be to cook the meat in a little bit of liquid over a long time. So you cook that meat, and it's sauteing, but it also has a little more liquid, and it tenderizes the meat. And poaching is about halfway up with liquid, and you lay it in, and then you just simmer that, and you put a lid, and it poaches it. So it sort of steams it in a broth, and it flavors.
Yeah, and that's how you would be poaching eggs. Would be in water, very healthy.
Yes, very healthy
way. Eggs aren't, you know, people say don't eat eggs because of cholesterol. The theory of the cholesterol causation of vascular disease is being buried. Not 20 eggs a week, but eat half a dozen eggs a week. Cholesterol is not the enemy. That's not what's inflaming our body.
Correct.
Fructose and sugar and omega-6 fats are inflaming our body. Yeah. That knowledge really is not out. Many providers don't really speak about that, but that's the latest in nutrition all over Dr. Katz's book too.
And that's why frying is, if you fry foods, particularly deep frying, you raise the calories by almost double. So now all the calories and the high fat raises your blood sugar, and then you need to make or take more insulin. So you're better off baking. And if you bake and do some of these other techniques, you can make a large amount of the food. And then you can have it through the week and maybe add something a little different each time you eat it to save time for people that are busy. They say they're too busy to cook.
I think this is great. We need to speak about that a little bit, to have these little plastic bags available that make more food than you're going to eat right there. Yes. Put in little bags, put it in the freezer, put a little sign up that says, use me, so it doesn't, that 3 years later you don't find it. You know what I mean? They use it through the week, use it up in the week. And portion size, you can that way send them with your husband or wife to work, for example, kids to school, if you don't like the food in the school, for example. But steaming, sauteing, and stir frying are very healthy ways of cooking.
And it's quick. If you're a busy family where your children have to go to get to their practice, stir frying is quick and easy. Yeah.
Plan your meal ahead of time is a big one.
And have the children help. They can chop things, they can break things, they can put things in little bags, divide it up. And it's a learning process for the children.
And they love it. I mean, can you imagine your daughter getting married and she's a great cook? I mean, you know, there's a heck of a start in life.
Yes. When our children were young.
Healthy children.
Yes.
She's probably not going to die young. Husband probably will be healthy. And it's a wonderful thing. We need to learn to cook. I think it is
well,
critical.
by teaching the children, you prevent the disease in your children, and you reverse it in yourself and make yourself healthier. When our children were little, as soon as they turned 5, each Wednesday night, it was their turn to choose the menu, prepare the food.
Is that right?
And they did that every week, and we did that for years.
A wonderful habit. It's the easiest way to avoid having obesity in children, for example, to teach them how to cook so they understand what food is, they understand the nutritional value of food. And because children, obesity rate is increasing tremendously. These kids will have heart attacks in their 30s and 40s.
Yes.
Yeah.
They say that the average child today will not outlive their parents.
Will outlive their parents.
So it's
scary.
very sad.
Yeah. And so dinner is about being together. And so the white killer, is sugar, flour, salt. While we're on the sugar thing, I just like to hold a minute. The book I wrote is on Amazon, Fructose, the Evil Twin. Fructose, the Evil Twin. I mean, what am I really saying is that sugar is bad. It inflames our whole body. Our bodies are on fire. But the worst of it is the fructose, the same sugar as is in fruit. 2 or 3 pieces of fruit are fine. But you can't eat 10 pieces because the fructose makes fatty liver. And that's what causes very low density LDL. That is what causes arteriosclerosis. Not the fat that you ate.
Yes.
It's the fat that's made by fructose in your liver causes this inflammation. Very interesting. So when we speak about a plate, and I think we're in generally agreement that half the plate should be non-starchy vegetables.
Yes.
What do you say, Kathy? All you can eat.
Right.
We're not talking about a diet today. We're not speaking about diet. We're speaking about eat all you want of that, because the nutrients, the vitamins, the minerals, the phytochemicals in that will turn your appetite off.
Right. And it's so much better to eat the food than to take supplements. So many people spend money.
Yeah.
They'll spend hundreds of dollars on all these supplements, but it's so much less expensive to eat the food in its natural form. And it's the best way. And that's where you get the benefit. If you take a supplement, there's no benefit from taking all your vitamins. You have to eat them.
How correct, because they don't work as well.
Right.
It's their interaction, their rainbow of interaction is what makes them work. To take them in isolated form doesn't work as good. Yeah, that's in many books. To eat them in their original form is really the healthiest way of consuming them. And then another quarter of the plate, starchy vegetables, sweet potato, baked potato, for example. But remember, a baked potato for a diabetic, not so good because it's sugar, right? Yeah. Do you allow your diabetics to eat baked potatoes?
I tell them to eat whatever they want and to make a healthier choice. Like if you're going to do a baked potato, you do a small one, the size of a tennis ball. Mm-hmm. And that's not very big. When you see some of the baked potatoes you're served in a restaurant.
That one restaurant I was talking about, it's like this.
Yeah. So if it's the size of a tennis ball and you use a little olive oil, or you can use a little bit of butter and a little bit of pepper, but you don't want the sour cream and everything you add on it, or a sweet potato. The further you take the food from its natural form, the higher the blood sugar will go. So a baked potato is better than when you mash it.
Eat it with the coverings and all.
Yes, eat
it's
everything.
Amazing because I've changed my way I eat over the years. That that I actually feel eating a baked potato is like eating a steak. And I think they thought it was a half-hour show.
And even red potatoes. You can get red potatoes and you can cut them in half or leave them whole, toss them in a little olive oil, a little sea salt and pepper, and bake them in the oven. But it's the original form. You have not mashed it or broken it down or made fries.
I'm glad you mentioned that about olive oil, because I actually use olive oil, have for years.
Yes.
Just a little bit. It's very tasty, and I don't use the butter and the creams. Although, with the latest thinking, butter is not quite the enemy we used to think it was.
Butter is much better than margarine.
The margarine,
all the
hydrogenated fats. Yeah. The fat theory of the cause of vascular disease, promoted by the McGovern Commission, Ansel Keys, the American Heart Association, many other scientists for 40 years, is being buried. Fat was not the cause of vascular disease. It was sugar, fructose, and the omega-3 fats, the omega-6 fats, the bad fats. And that's being worked out pretty good. And you can take and collect recipes. In the next few shows, we'll be speaking about recipes that we've accumulated, different breakfasts, lunches, and dinner, and you can fix them quick. 10 minutes, you should be able to fix them. And buy food seasonally, buy more of it, and freeze it, or you can buy frozen vegetables, for example, and then parboil them.
Yeah.
Boil them. And describe that to us. What's parboiling?
Parboiling is when you only cook it part way. Your food needs to be a little firm when you eat your vegetables, rather than the more you cook it, the more nutrition you lose. And I tell you say, you know, what do I let them eat? I tell them to eat whatever, but I try to teach them healthy concepts. So I say, take a recipe that you really like, and maybe it's something that's been handed down. And there is a TV show now where they take a family recipe, but 2 chefs make it healthy. And I tell them, look through the recipe and try to choose a healthier alternative for that ingredient. So they're eating what they like, because it has to be a slow process. It doesn't happen overnight. And I say, make your recipe more healthy, and that way you still enjoy it. And you learn new items to substitute and new spices. Some people have never tried all the spices.
There's really a world, and when I speak to Dr. Varula, the pediatrician who knows a lot about nutrition, his whole house looks like a spice factory where he's growing all these spices on the outside. Become an expert in condiments and in spices. You can take any type of a meal, you put in the right condiments, the right spices, you can make it different every day. I think a wonderful habit that someone could develop to really become good at the best spice. You can make the same recipe taste totally differently.
Yes.
Totally differently.
And you've been mentioning condiments. You look at your ketchup.
Yeah.
There's so much on there. We're trying now to develop our own salad dressings, things that you make that are going to only last a day or two, because there's not going to be a preservative in what we make. And if anything in the store in a bottle has preservatives, anything that's in a bottle, a bag, a jar. So if you can make it yourself at home, you can make it healthier and fresh.
Yeah, and if it has all hormones or colorings in it, you don't want to eat it. You want to eat true, fresh, organic food. If you eat organic, fresh food, you'll 90% chance your type 2 diabetes, 1 month gone. That's many books, my experience, but it may be difficult for you to change, but you have to pay attention, because the last 20 years of your life, you may have a chronic disease, be in a wheelchair, have your hip replaced, knee replaced type thing. You see type 2 diabetics all the time. You see a person walking along with a cane, take a look, they're about 60, odds are they're overweight, type 2 diabetic. And this is a no judgment zone. We're not judging anybody. We're trying to tell you how you can get rid of this illness. And that's why we're here. That's why we're both here today. It's a no judgment zone. Believe me, all these habits one time or another we've had, haven't we, Kathy?
Yes, we have.
And Kathy at one time was type 2 diabetic. It's gone, though. It's gone, though. And her exercise is dancing. Yeah, she became the Ohio State female dancing champion. Isn't that wonderful, Kathy?
And you can move in a chair. I just had a patient this past week said, what exercises can I do in my chair? And if you look on YouTube and pull up chair exercises, there are several. You can turn on your computer, sit in the chair, you can exercise and twist and move and lift your legs. So you can still exercise and be active in a chair.
Isn't this true? You can actually stand while you're leaning on something. You do one-legged squats where you go up and down to lengthen, to strengthen your quads. I was showing it to a patient the other day sitting in a wheelchair, and I showed him how to do it. He said, I'll do it the rest of my life. And some basic cooking rules, and let's go over those here a minute. Some seem very obvious. Always wash your hands. Put your hair up. Read over the recipe before you start cooking. That makes a lot of sense.
Yes, and get everything prepared. There's a French term called mise en place. Everything you measure it all out before you get started, because then you know you have it all. And it's, if you need this much salt or this much pepper or this much the carrots, you get everything ready. And
Interesting.
then you can mix it.
Had the
And that's where
recipe.
your children can help.
And the kids, you run for this, you go to the freezer, you get that, and they get in the habit of it. First time around, it may be a little confusing, but if you do it regularly, it's nothing. And preheat the oven if baking or roasting. What's the difference between baking and roasting?
Roasting is there is a liquid
It's a liquid.
in
yeah.
it. And baking is like baking.
Pretty dry, huh?
Yes.
And use a timer to keep track of cooking times. And I remember you told me one time too, always have a sharp knife available in case you need to cut something, and have a sharpener in the kitchen.
Yes. You should
Electric
have,
yeah.
if you have 2 knives, a chef's knife and a paring knife,
Yeah.
and a pair of scissors,
Yeah.
kitchen shears.
Never leave food out for more than 2 hours so it doesn't spoil. I think is a good one. Be sure to wash the counters and sinks with soap, water, bleach, or disinfectant, because we don't want to pick up bacteria in the food that we're eating. Scrub vegetables instead of peeling to keep so that you eat it so it's not refined. I mean, that you eat it with the covering.
A lot of the nutrition is in the peeling and the outer coating. That's why you just clean them.
The vitamins, the phytochemicals,
The fiber.
The fiber in the covering. That's what makes them healthy. So you don't want to peel them. We already spoke about reading the labels for sugar and fiber. And when steaming vegetables, always finish by rinsing them in cold water. This will hold their color and flavor. That's interesting. I like steamed vegetables. Never rinse pasta. Have you ever heard that before?
Yes.
You have, huh? Why?
You don't rinse pasta.
Why is that?
If you rinse pasta and it gets gelatin-like
Uh-huh.
and chewier.
Okay. Don't put olive oil or butter on pasta to keep it from sticking. The starch in the noodles keeps sauces to cling. Huh? And compost and recycle, no waste, good for the environment. Okay. And put it in little containers in the freezer so the next day you don't have to work as hard. And then we have about 2 or 3 pages of equipment. I don't think we need to go through that, but you can add to it over time, and we mentioned about having a sharp knife, and be careful that you don't cut your fingers. I remember being at the gentleman that owned the Pizza Hut in town, passed away last year. He tried to teach me how to cook, and I'm being a neurosurgeon, he chopping away vegetables. Interesting enough, that made him very nervous. He eventually stopped me from doing it. But I did get we took a picture of it, at least to prove that. So I am committed, just like Dr. Lustig did and Dr. Hyman did. Mark Hyman, Blood Sugar Solutions, he's a cook. And I'm committed to become a good cook. And for a diabetic, as we mentioned, it is just absolutely critical. And do you have a good pantry at home? I think keeping a good pantry, with some beans in it and
Right. Keep healthy foods, because then those are the foods you're going to go to when you go to cook.
Yeah.
If there's something unhealthy in there, there's an option. If you remove all the unhealthy options, then you only have healthy options to choose. And buy your vegetables fresh or frozen, depending on the season.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We make a lot of soup. Sometimes a small bowl of soup in the beginning of the meal satisfies some of your hunger and you don't eat as much.
Yeah.
But it could be healthy. We've been making lentil soup, zucchini soup, everything fresh.
I noticed that I've been speaking to your boyfriend, George, and I think I've taken this guy who paid a little bit of attention to cooking, but now, wow, he is turning into a real great cook.
I agree.
Very healthy. He's learning about condiments and in your comment earlier, I want to reiterate that again. Supplements. Dr. Katz in his book doesn't believe in any of them. None. Zero. He's 25 years most well-known public health nutritionist in the United States. World famous, maybe in the world. He doesn't recommend them. Get it in your original food. And if all these you know, people walk up and should I take this? I know somebody in town takes 150 supplements. Wow. But don't you think his body's going to react to that?
Yes.
You know, you're going to have complications from that. So these are Mark Hyman's recommendations. We already went through these a bit here. Bring in real food, fresh food. No labels. Throw out fake food. Clean the kitchen out. No fake food in here. And it may take a while to change the kids if you're having to make this change. But with the kids, I suggest maybe when you're doing this, do it a little bit at a time and don't say a word. One day the kitchen is clean and they'll make the transition. Don't make a war out of avoiding eating you know, a cupcake or something else. You never know what's going on at school. Find out what's going on at the school.
Right.
Because a lot of schools are better than others. And cook, again, a statement, cook with family and friends, get a connection, a celebration. Cooking together is a celebration. You can talk about the problems of the day. How'd you do in school, Johnny? Let's review Dr. Hyman's 10 rules of eating for life, okay? Only food without labels. I think we've driven this point home. And no box, no packaging, or a can. If a label, fewer than 5 ingredients in them at most. If there's sugar on the label, throw it out. White rice, white flour, goodbye. Especially for diabetic,
Yes.
going to raise their blood sugar. And anything that has fructose corn syrup in it, again, what I mentioned earlier, glucose, 20% goes to the liver, 20% the brain, the rest goes to our muscles. But fructose, the other half of sucrose, the other half goes to the liver, causes fatty liver, causes metabolic syndrome, causes very low density LDL that inflames your blood vessels and burrows underneath the endothelium of your blood vessels and causes atherosclerosis, arteriosclerosis. So it's the sugar, not the fat.
Correct.
And not that omega-6s couldn't cause inflammation, but that's not the major cause of arteriosclerosis. If it's hydrogenated, where they add a hydrogen ion to a vegetable oil to make it solid, that is also not good for you because it decreases your heavenly LDL and increases the nasty LDL. But like I said, your cholesterol level and your LDL level are not quite the importance that we think it was. What you want to get is your very low density LDL and look at the particle count. And that's what you want to look at very early in your life. If you're pre-diabetic, when you're 20, even maybe as a teenager, find out what it is. You can do something about it. Otherwise, first time you grab your chest, well now, and you're having a heart attack, and now you want to eat the right diet. It may be too late. Incidentally, the initial symptoms of heart disease, you know what the initial symptom of heart disease is, Kathy? Maybe you've heard me say it before.
I don't think I have.
A lot of people would say angina. It's death. They die. Half of them die.
Yeah.
Found at home, they're dead. And happened to a good friend of mine recently, and plenty of patients I've seen over the years. So that's the reason. Get your blood work at a very early age. I don't care if they don't want to pay for it or not. Get it done yearly. Even as a teenager, heart disease begins at age 2. Yeah, Begalusa study by Dr. Atwood, 40 years autopsied all children that died from accidents and diseases, and he found that arteriosclerotic streaks began at age 2.
I don't believe that.
Probably type diabetic time to 15, and probably had a stroke or living in a nursing home, had coronary bypass surgery in teenagers. I've seen it.
And it's hard now, you know, I think what we have to overcome, we're educating, and whoever's watching this show, thank you because you're learning.
Yes.
But it's so hard there's so many TV commercials, these children,
Yeah.
everything is bombarded, and it wasn't like that years ago.
Yeah, and their brain isn't
very
fully
hard.
developed yet, so it takes like 36% of food could be 36% sugar, and a child will still eat it. An adult, it's 26%. It was studied by the Monell Institute in Philadelphia. They study, the industry pays for that.
Yes.
How to sell food. Oh, the government says reduce the sugar. What do? They increase the omega-6 fat to make it more tasty so that you will buy it. Throw out the artificial sweetness, and this is interesting too, because the artificial sweetness increase your taste for sugar ×7. So the next food you buy, you're going to buy a much more sugary food.
Yes.
It causes belly fat, so these non-diet things are not good for you.
Right.
Even stevia is like 300 times as sweet as anything else, although it itself is a healthy product. But if you're going to drink that cup of coffee or eat something because it's 300 times more sweet, what do you think the next thing you're going to grab to eat?
You get addicted to the sweet taste, and it gets sweeter and sweeter.
Right. You're going to look for some sweet.
Yeah.
Only thing that'll make you feel good if it's got sugar in it.
And low-fat products
Yeah.
have more sugar because they're not
Yeah.
tasty.
Yeah. And
It's definitely a battle.
it is, and it's difficult. That's the reason I work with the Daniel Plan. Faith, food, focus, fitness, friends, because it takes that to convince for people to be able to change the way of eating. But then we turn around and which I knew 30 years, but it's interesting to see it confirmed by Dr. Katz that we can by proper eating, by watching our fingers, our forks, and our feet. Name of another book I'm coming out with shortly. That we can avoid 80% of chronic disease. That's huge. I mean, that's not kidding around. But there's lack of knowledge out there. There's even a passage in the Bible that says that. Yeah, there's lack of knowledge. But as I mentioned earlier, knowledge is not power. We have to give the patient, the people, our friends, the power to change. And it's not easy. And this is a no judgment zone. This is not easy. Another book I read, which I'd like to read, and I know you've read it too, is by Sarah Wilson, I Quit Sugar. I think it's quite good, and actually the first 50 pages, so she explains, again, why you should quit sugar. And there's good recipes in there.
Yes.
I think some a little complex, but every book I mentioned today has some recipes in it. And so you can pick and choose, and we're going to put them together in our next shows. But all these books have something good. I mean, some of her recipes are really quite good. Anything you'd like to add, Kathy, on your experience in all these years with diabetics? I think you and I are in complete agreement.
Yes.
That type 2 diabetes is preventable, stoppable, reversible the majority of the time, and so will its accompanying chronic diseases that
Yes.
go with it. But really the most important thing, it starts in the kitchen, doesn't it?
Yes.
Really? And that's the reason we want to dwell on this so much, that you got to learn to cook. You're type 2 diabetic, no excuses. You got to learn to cook.
And you can do it
Yeah.
simply. You don't
Yeah.
have to have a complex recipe. You can
Yeah.
start at a very small level.
Yeah, and then even in Dr. Lustig's book, he even puts the price of the meal on there.
Yes.
You get a chicken dinner for $4 and plenty to eat, broccoli and everything else. What was it, $12?
Yes.
That's what he in there. I mean, so try to, if you believe that good food is much more expensive, I think you ought to reconsider it and just be a bit of a schmarter.
Yes. It takes time to develop a habit. And we've developed all these habits over time, but you can have a good habit just as well as a bad habit. I've had people give up their soda, and they see me every 3 to 4 months, and they'll lose 15 to 20 pounds just giving up soda, diet soda or regular soda.
Yeah. And as we mentioned, being overweight, or I want to use a nastier term, obesity, 50% of it is due to sodas. You know, in Japan, to get a little humor into it, the people didn't like the term, so they had a national vote. And they do this over there. They call them metabos for metabolic syndrome. Yeah, that you're not. Yeah,
that's
a friendly term. But
yes.
I can see it. They even did it to Alzheimer's disease. They called it cognitive issues.
Yes.
Based on a national vote.
Kinder.
I think this is good, because who wants to hear this stuff? You know what I mean? There isn't any one of us who at one time or another ate nasty food. I did.
And I don't feel I can get my patients or have them change their lifestyle if I don't practice what I teach them.
Yeah.
And if I come up with lots of good ideas and tell them what I'm eating and share what I do, they're more likely to follow and to say, well, if she can do it, so can I.
Absolutely. Yeah. Since I've really nailed the subject down, you know, I've been a neurosurgeon, quit last year, 44 years, but for the last 35, Kathy, I was in agony because I was looking at the patient, whether they come to see me about, didn't really match x-rays the majority of the time. They were having chronic disease problems from a diabetic neuropathy to dementia to gluten problems. And some people need to look at, when they go see the family physician, let's talk about the test a little bit, to get a gluten test. Because the wheat that we're eating today is different wheat than we ate many years ago. And it's totally different. In 1948, Dr. Berlo, working for the Rockefeller Institute in Mexico City, they had 2 growing seasons there. It's the reason he was there. Dr. Berlo genetically, through hybridization and genetic changes, changed wheat. Wheat used to be this tall. Now it's about this tall. And he never tested it in humans. Sent it all over the world. But when you look at the world today, what's happening? Saudi Arabia, worst obesity rate than we got. Vietnam, Korea, higher type 2 diabetes rate.
China,
Asians,
India.
especially, you have to watch out for them. They can be of normal weight, look thin, but yet have metabolic syndrome.
Yes.
You know, and insulin resistance at the center of it.
China is the highest country for type 2.
China now is the highest in the world for type 2. Thank you for bringing me up to date there. It's because they're eating too many sugary products.
They're eating like Americans.
They're eating like Americans. Same fast food restaurants, restaurants with the same name. It's a scourge all over the world, which is sort of sad when we have the answer. But I don't think the rest of the provider community is screaming it off the rooftops, which I think we need to. In this country, type 2 diabetes will probably cost us $1 trillion a year. And look at the suffering in the people, all the things we can avoid. You know, we can get you to live to be 100, but you get type diabetes, you live to be 100, I'll give you a medal. And you know what I mean? So that's the reason, you know, for our passion in teaching it. And I wouldn't say, considering, if you don't consider the psychology, that it's that difficult.
No.
You know what I mean?
It takes time,
Yeah.
and you have to adapt to it. And once you do, then be the leader. If you go out somewhere and everybody's saying, oh, you know, are you on a diet? Say, no, I've just changed my lifestyle to be healthier. And be the leader. Choose the healthy food, and everybody will see your success, and they'll follow you.
Yeah, and you have to, you know, get social support if you can.
Yes.
Especially if the whole family is eating wrong. You may need to, you know, stand up with it and just, you know, I don't eat that, and, you know, let them say what they want. But your life is at stake.
Yes.
So to summarize, the way of eating that we recommend is kind of like the plate, isn't it, really?
Yes.
And like Dr. Hyman has it in the Daniel book. He helped write that book. is 1/2 vegetables, non-starchy vegetables, all you can eat, because it's full of vitamins, minerals, phytochemicals, and it's their interaction that leads to good health. One quarter starchy vegetables, yes. And another quarter lean meat, right. Hopefully from an organic farm, from the ocean. That's how you avoid the omega-6s, the bad yes. fats, and eat the good
right.
fats.
And once you reduce that sugar, you don't
yeah.
crave it as much.
Yeah.
So once you start reducing, then you reduce your craving.
Yeah.
And you don't feel you need it anymore.
Yeah. And that you exercise regularly. And like I said, we're not talking about lifting 100 pounds or anything like that. We're half-hour walk. Now, if you do other things, take up dancing. You took up dancing, and I've taken up dancing. So your boyfriend George is a national dancer. Very good exercise. And if you can pick an exercise that makes you feel good, you're more likely to do it.
Correct.
And that's why dancing's a good one, because we're laughing, we're hugging, we're moving. That's really a great one, isn't it?
Yes.
That's really, so pick an exercise that you love. I recently took up, I played tennis already. I took up a sport, which you might try, especially people like pickleball. Yeah, look it up. You can go YouTube pickleball, and it's maybe a little less stressful than tennis. But I tell you, it's exercise. Oh yeah, it's actually helped my tennis game, because you're having to charge the net a lot, and I'm charging the net more. So there's a sport, but pick anything that you like. But I think movement is important. That's how you reduce insulin resistance. So I think we have brought to you, I think, some ideas about the kitchen. Do some reading, preparing, and get your whole family involved. Get the whole family involved. And watch our shows. We'll be speaking about recipes next time a little bit. You know, maybe 5 or 10 easy breakfasts, lunches, dinners. This is not complex. I don't think, Kathy,
no.
You? Yeah. And
it's easier than you think.
Easier than you think, and I really appreciate you coming here. Yeah, there's a wonderful, I think, diabetic group there at Lutheran Hospital in terms of, you know, preventing it, stopping it, reversing it, and if necessary, treat it. Trying to keep you on the least amount of medications, because the medications are expensive and they have side effects.
Yes.
Insulin makes you gain weight. It's an antibiotic hormone, for example. So even the type 1 diabetic who needs insulin can improve the amount of insulin they use by proper diet. So anyway, thanks for listening. Thanks, Kathy.
Thank you.
We love you all. That's actually the reason we're here tonight. That's the reason we're here, is because we care about you, and we can avoid so much disease. And namaste. Have a nice evening. Turn on some music. Maybe take up dancing like Kathy does, our boyfriend George does, like I do. It's it's a fun exercise, and it will result in good health. Watch our next show coming up, which will be the actual recipes and discussion, where to get them, and we're going to try to keep it simple. We thank you very much.